Nej, alltså röstprov är jag helt
på.
Är det på?
Den är på.
Ja, röstprovet fungerar inte. Nej, jag menar det fungerar. Det var bara röstprovet som lät så. Ja.
Jag ser att du hoppar lite här. Jag vet inte vad det var på. Rätta du lite grann. Ja. Då säger vi igen hjärtligt välkomna till det här samtalet mellan Alte Schweden och Lars Vilks. Och ni är ju så välkomna att ställa frågor också, så att det blir ett samtal det här. Det tycker jag skulle vara trevligt i alla fall. Hoppas ni också är med på noterna. Okej? Och det är så här också att vi behöver föra det på engelska, eftersom vi har många internationella gäster här idag också. So please, could we talk English? So we all can understand what this is about. Please.
English, it was English, yes. We will try to speak clear school English and hope that everyone will understand at least a few words here. And as I said, I would like to pose some questions to this young artist here. They are...
Sorry, we have to...
That was a technical performance.
Du kan slå av det lite.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we have today a situation where artists are working with political and social issues and communicating things like that to someone in the art world, in the audience. And I mean, that's very commonly known. And my first question would be to these gentlemen, what is your position? I mean, do you understand what I mean? I mean, this dealing with social and political issues must be well known to you. But how do you handle this? And this exhibition we see here, would you consider this be a kind of political issue? Is there something you want to communicate specifically to your audience?
Yeah, hello? Okay. Well, I can speak loud, so until we solve this. Okay, I would say that how we have thought about this is not to make propaganda. We want to more raise questions, to encourage people to, through the works we have made so far and the works that will be added through workshops and so on, that it will raise questions and thoughts in people's minds, because it's a very narrow line dealing with political issues as an artist. Either you end up on one side in a propaganda kind of struggle. So it's, I would say we'll try to ask questions more than state things.
I would say we try to be very open and not too... Hello?
No.
Hello? Hello?
Or just, yeah, no, it works, okay. I mean, we try not to be dogmatic or not too dogmatic, and be open-minded enough to change our positions. And like when we went to Tallinn, we thought that people would be skeptical, not be happy about the EU, because they get rid of the old empire, which was the Soviet Union, and then they were swallowed by a new one, which was the EU. But they were not that skeptical. We didn't see it, so then we just changed our plans. So we just try to be flexible, and if it doesn't work, we don't want to educate people and tell them what to think. So and it should be very open. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we, in some sense, use the political and the kind of historical I don't know, stories, but in one sense, but we use it kind of like a skin, to maybe deal with I don't know, maybe more abstract or more questions about I think power and how how our societies are sort of structured, and kind of uses that the thing with the the singing revolution as a kind of how can you call it? Yeah, kind of like a story, something that happened in the past, and this exhibition is kind of more in a now, and but also we also have a future aspect.
The reason I step up is that it's very good for the audience to see some movement, because otherwise you get so tired of seeing these people sitting all the time, and that's kind of reviving the situation now. Now I've done that, so now you're fresh and nice. Now I would like to. This was a kind of warming up situation. Now we all have started here, and then I would like to say a few words about and ask another question, which is a bit more difficult, a bit more forceful, I could say. And that is, I mentioned this about education, that they are so well educated. And I say my background is that I've been teaching at art schools, art academies in Sweden and in Norway for many years. And I've then seen that the growing, what we call the academic turn, the pedagogical turn, that when you go to an academy today, you do not study very much drawing and painting like it was in the old days. The thing you have is, of course, theory. You have to read, you have to explain, you have to make projects, you have to write down things about receiving money for what you're going to do, to make it possible. And they are then they're very well educated. And when you have art seminars and you find artists, they talk like theoreticians partly, because they've been studying very much and they are trained to present their things. And so everything has become also very theoretical. And that means that when you go into such an education, it is very difficult to get this education if you don't have this study. If you try to do it your own way, if you're an outsider outside the academy, then it's very, very difficult if you not receive this inside ship. Because when you go to an academy, you learn things, you meet people, you discuss, and together, the big family, or the tribe, I would call it. And then you learn things, and then you go out and do things. And this is leading up to my question. We have here 3 gentlemen who have been trained, and they are a part of the tribe. Because I'm also a part of the tribe. That I've done my best to try to get out of the tribe, which I've been quite successful in. But I mean, I'm still considered being a part of the tribe, and that's why I'm here. And I can understand, because I think we have a language together, because I know that language. But the thing is that when you have this language, will all artists do about the same things? Is there a possibility, and that's what I'm asking you here, if we talk about revolution, how about art? Are you able to make a revolution in art? And using the other of your concepts, what is actually your freedom as artist? If you turn not to the audience and ask them what is freedom for you, I mean, if we turn to our friend artists here and look at their own doings, I mean, how do you look upon these things toward yourself? And I was then thinking about that, as you have all this knowledge, all these studies, you've seen all these examples, and when you make an exhibition, I can immediately say that your exhibition looks like a contemporary exhibition. It's an okay exhibition. I can say that directly. And I can see the concept, it's an okay concept. I mean, it will be recognized by the other one in the tribe. And that you have learned a lesson. I mean, you know how to do things. It's good. It's good. It's good. And at the same time as we say it's good, it's a bit of a problem. You understand?
Yeah. It's not
because there is some sort of similarities, which is, of course, this difficulty. And what is then your odds? I mean, if you want to step further, and what sort of freedom you have with all this knowledge and the possibilities you have in the exhibition. What is your freedom or your possibility to make a revolution with your art in the art scene? Anyone else say?
Yeah, but that's the problem, because of course you have to fit in the system, otherwise you don't get grants and then you don't get shows. So we know the limitations, so but it's just good to be aware of it. But,
one revolutionary aspect might be that we try to leave this as open for people as possible, to not go into a history museum. Don't touch, don't. If you go into an art museum, often it's like you can't approach this, you can't touch this thing. It's very holy. This is the final piece that's standing there, and we want to switch this here. We want people to actually be more inspired what's happening in the room, and also do things in the room that they might be kind of a participatory thing that we were talking up there, and then we take the honor, as you said. But we hopefully don't, because we want people also to who are in these projects here and who take part also get their names added to the projects they've been in. So it's not only that we will be the great gods of Kalmar
but there is
Konstmuseum.
this hierarchy, because they do it for
Yeah,
us, so it's like the big
yeah,
band,
it is, yeah.
and there's a little collaboration, so of course we are the three
Yeah,
people. And
but we also want to question what can you do in a museum as a visitor. That is one of the things that we because this participatory culture thing that is very popular right now, and you try to engage people in art, and then maybe they will become interested in it or maybe not. I think we want to try at least. And then the question about freedom.
What is your what freedom do you imagine you have in the framework here? Is there, would you like to do things you cannot do here, for example? I mean, you said that we know we have the limitation, but we would really like to have done it like this. But I mean, we have to be practical here. This is the rules, you know.
Yeah. How would you answer on that?
I didn't feel for that. I didn't censor myself, so if I would feel for it, I would probably be quite sad, but I didn't have the feeling that I really need to provoke a lot of people and make people hate me, so, but maybe in the future. But this is basically just a test. It's the first time we do it, and in January then the show is finished, because it will grow and grow, so we want to know where it's leading to, if it's good or bad, and it's just a big experiment, basically. And if it works, we would like to continue. If not, I mean, then it's also fine. Then,
but we continue anyway.
We will continue anyway. But you just have to be aware that you can fail completely, and yeah.
But I think we've been granted a lot of freedom here, and we've also working with the museum staff and in discussions how will it be practical for the pedagogic groups to go into the room with children and art pedagogues, and how do we define an area where they can work? Do we give them free hands totally, or how should we manage this? And what happens if a visitor comes in and starts spraying on the walls and all these things? So we have had these discussions, and the show is, as we described, it is interactive, and it is up to the audience to also become part of it and do their own interpretations or add-ons and so on. So this is a risk for everybody, also for those who I mean, do this. If they want to come and destroy, that's easy, but if they actually want to contribute to this and develop this project, then take some thoughts also. So we hope that will.
But it's difficult to complain if people hate it. What kind of shit is that? Then at least then we give them the chance. Like, okay, do it better. Show what kind of art you would like to see. And if it's terrible, that's fine. But it's great for them. So we would like to know what the audience would like to see. We don't know if they what they want, but here they can show.
No, I think it's sort of important to try to have the exhibition as a sort of process, and I mean also for us, because I think we sort of really, I mean, I kind of felt those things that you're saying when you sort of try to do an exhibition about freedom in a sort of art context. So it's a lot about, I don't know, trying to bend trying to bend the rules but stay inside them. Yeah, you can see I'm sort of yeah. I've been damaged by by the art school.
Yeah, all of us.
I think that's very good when you say that, because I think all artists must confess to say I've been really destroyed by the art school. But on the other hand, it's necessary. It's necessary to be destroyed, and in some way or other survive. One is that you come out as a standard artist product, and you will make good art. Because you know how to make good art, because you've learned that, and you can do that. It's not better than good. And you can say that as things has been very standardized today, and that's a discussion you have in the art world, and that's why there is difficulties on the E-Flux journal to find a new direction. It is that you have standardized the situation. It means that we have never had so many artists around, so many international artists all over the world making so much good art. It's a fantastic time. But the bad news is that nothing particular is happening. But everything is going very good. It's really steaming up here. The factories are working, and they push out all these artists from the art schools. Every year you have them. They come from Stockholm, they come from Umeå, they come from Stockholm too. They come from Gothenburg, and they come from Malmö. New artists, well, it must be about 50, 60 artists every at least. I mean, coming out. And you have 50, 60 fresh new artists who is going to start a career. I mean, in 10 years' time. And I mean, of course, we have many artists, and it's a problem. We are overproductive. And the thing is, of course, that how do you handle this situation? How do you do something which is different? I mean, there's something I've been trying to make a more narrow definition about art. I don't think it's difficult to define art, and I think that many people here already know the very simple answer that art is what the art world says is art. And in the same moment, you should really stress to make this definition interesting, and that is what is good art. And there it becomes interesting. Good art is that which the art world consider being good art. And if you look at good art, then you find that this good art will be exhibited in the better places they exhibit, the better art it is. If you have these guys here were offered a one-man show on the Museum of Modern Art in New York, then this would be quality. This would be, I mean, it would really rise. I mean, to have an exhibition in Kalmar is a very good thing, but it can't be compared with. And if they had one more on Tate Modern, then I mean, it would be total happiness or the death of these guys.
Yeah, probably.
They would die in the museum. The earth. I mean, if you have too much of a success very fast, how can you ever come back? Because you have too much. You standardize too fast, and that's the problem. But if you accept that, and that's quite an easy way because it's quite natural to understand that that's the way things work. You can also say that there is some motives, some aspects in the art, and if we go back to that, and I'll ask you a question about these things. And talking about asking questions, we heard, I think it was you or all of you actually said that. As an artist, we don't proclaim, we don't deal with propaganda. We can say when an artist says that is actually exactly what you learn at art schools. We are not dealing with propaganda, we are not instrumental, we are free, we ask questions. We ask questions, and that's been been a clear thing, but becomes a little more unclear now because there's something added which the people know, and that's maybe we could start there and ask about your opinion about that. And I think this is something, if you don't know it, it could be interesting. And that is today the art schools, the academies, they have a special issue called Art as Science. Konst som forskning. Because they get money for that, because they must do this research work, because they have that in the university, and there is money also for the art academies. So they have to have a program where they make research, real scientific research with art. And I mean, I was very much involved in that when I was working, and I said that this is a difficult matter, because if you have art as research, we can never get a result. Because the rule is that art is always asking questions. And when you make research, you must have an answer. So it's very difficult. You can't really have a research university ending with a question. And maybe we could start there and ask, how is your relation to art as research? Have you a relation to that also? For example, in this program, has this something to do? You must have met that when you've been studying.
Yeah, I think it's nonsense, because if you want that, you can study traditional art history. So then it's fine. But as an artist, you should not pretend you're something else than you are. And I think it's just two different words: the art world and the art history world. So, but they try to mix it, and it's blurry and unclear. But then you got a PhD in fine art, which is basically doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I think it's. The whole thing that the art schools or art universities, colleges, is within the university world to start with is not a good thing, because then you have to confine in something that you're studying or trying to learn or trying to be to a system that is set by extremely old and very slow rules. I mean, the whole university system is maybe how old can it be, 2,000 years or something, from the Greeks or even older. And it's been growing for such a long time into this thing where you produce research in a certain method. And art is more, I would say, trying to find ways through other means. So I would prefer that the whole thing with the art schools, that they were not part of the university system. And the thing also to write a theoretical paper on a practical work is suddenly you're destroying the work when you're trying to explain it in small sections, and it's a very strange situation to study art, I think.
It has to be done, but
yeah,
you have to have an art historian, a person who can do it for you.
Yeah.
Then or like we have to write applications, but it doesn't mean we like to do it. But it's just part of the game, and then.
Yeah, so art as research, I think it's kind of a paradox, actually. I would say you can do art projects about research, maybe, but. Researching through art, I think that is, it collides. For me, at least, it's been like this.
You have the same opinion?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess if you have science, I guess you have to have like a framework, so you can compare like one result against another. So I mean. So then you sort of have to have rules, and if you want art to sort of, I guess, come up with like new results, those results is gonna be, I guess, affected by the fact that it's sort of that it has the framework of science. So. I don't know if it's. Yeah, I don't know if.
Yeah, I can say you're not too enthusiastic. We can summarize that, and that's a report from young artist scene. I mean, because this thing started back in the 90s when I was a part of this game here, and we had meetings and meetings. To establish what is artistic research, and in the end it actually was established, and you can study it and you can have a PhD, you become a doctor in art, in practical art. But you have to come up with a project, you have to apply for that project, And then of course it's very interesting because you paid. The thing is that you can make an art project and you write it down as a research project, and then you paid for 4 years. So I mean, there's money. But of course there's a problem in actually doing it, and we could hear that. So because as a report from the young scene is that the enthusiasm is not really clear there. Would you say that this is an opinion which is quite common among your fellow artists?
Yeah, for sure. But I think I would do it because you get the title and a lot of money. So why not do it?
I would say it's 50-50. Some people think it's very safe also, because then you adhere to certain rules and you know you're doing the right thing. It's more perilous to start deviating from the rules. And I think it's good. The art scene should be alive and it should question rules, rather than follow them. I would say. So for me, it was difficult in the university to try to be friends with the system there, because it was. But I got a degree, so.
But it's difficult to keep the distance when you're there. So.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Those of you who wants to sort things out here, you can then understand that there are two aspects of the contemporary scene right now. One aspect, which I mentioned earlier, is art as political activity. I mean, a direct activity, which actually had the height, the climax last year, you can say. But I mean, still going around. In Sweden, it's represented by the magazine Paletten. They still are going for that idea about art as activism. So this is a very political thing, and that they are the representatives we have in Sweden. And there are, of course, many other representatives in different countries. So it's a part of the game here. And then we have the artist research, which is another aspect. And the thing is that one do not really believe in any of these to be what we will meet further on. I mean, what will come out of that. And you can also say that when we have this exhibition, it doesn't really fit into any of these aspects. It's another one. And if you want to be a bit nasty against these guys, is this actually more a compromise? Is it kind of compromise between research and political activism? Or what can we call it? Because, as I said, that if you want to define what aspects are kind of describing what art is about, then we have first that when you do something in art, you ask questions. You don't answer. You ask questions, and you must remember that the artists do not have the answer. The other thing is that you have to be unclear. Because the question is rather for the audience, and there is no answer. So if you make a very clear thing which is easy to understand, a symbol which is kind of just to understand in one way, I mean, then the work didn't really be of interest. You have to be unclear. And the third thing here is, of course, then transgression. And if I ask this question to you here, is it possible for art today to be transgressive? Or are we in another world today? Is provocation just a kind of media effect? Because we have seen that in Sweden you have had some examples for provocations in art, but they actually been taking place outside more inside. Been a media. And the art world has related to this from but inside it doesn't really seem
no,
much.
It's difficult to provoke inside the art world. Very easy to provoke outside, probably. But do we want to provoke? Why should we want to provoke?
And that was the question you said, that art is an aspect. A very important art is that it's transgressive. I mean, it's not repeating things.
No.
Because I mean, you wouldn't say that. Well, this exhibition we make is a repetition which you've seen 100 times.
That would be pretty cool.
So I mean, how would you describe this exhibition and your work in relation to being a transgressive artist? Because you must add something. We don't want to provoke people because then they wouldn't allow us to exhibit here. But I mean, we can't be too good either. You must have a relation to adding something.
Yeah. But maybe the audience is just very friendly here, because in Tallinn, when I exhibited like the same with the beer caps, someone said like, "It looks like shit," and I thought it was irony, but he repeated 5 times. So.
And you asked me to throw him out. Or
Yeah, we had to kick him out because he was getting more and more aggressive, and he wanted to take our beer. But then it was maybe good art because he was so provoked. But whatever, I didn't.
I think also in Tallinn when we showed this piece, it's the thing that there were Russians in singing in the sounds that made some people very provoked there. They said they have nothing to do in
because
this
they're
room.
not considered Estonians.
Yeah, but
so.
the thing is that led to discussions between Russians and Estonians that actually ended up in some kind of understanding. Oh shit,
And they were drinking beer together, Russian and Estonian beer, so then they could.
So it was kind of interesting there, I think. Yeah. It's a difficult question to answer, I think.
When you do a work, I mean, you don't even think about that, about having this transgressive aspect. I mean,
Then you
how
can't
do you
produce
want to?
anything.
You want to do something new. I mean, and how do you deal with that problem? Do you work and then you recognize that this is new enough, or?
Just do it. If you just think you have to be so nosy, you have to provoke, you have to be, then you can't get anything done. Then it's just too much pressure, and it's just pathetic. I mean, I think as an artist, sometimes you just do it, and it's you can't just have this idea and just think an entire night like I have to exhibit in Kalmar, and I really need to make something good, and it has to be so new. Then you stop yourself. It's just too much.
Yeah, but I can understand that well. But the thing is, of course, that when you have a project, then you must also think about many other artists who has made things similar to your works, and then you can find out that this is too similar, and then you will probably not do it in the same way. You will change it because it was too similar to that one.
No, for sure.
So I mean, you have to think about that.
Or hope that no one can see that it's a copy.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I think that's interesting. Was this a joke or was it truth?
It was both. Because sometimes on the net you see artists who make similar work. So, and I shared with my brother. We can laugh about like me, but of course I hope that no one will realize it. But musicians, they do the same, and artists do the same. It's very difficult to.
What do they do?
They sometimes just get the same ideas, or they had the same idea, but 40 years before, and we don't even know anything about it. Or sometimes you just copy it. I mean, some artists do it, and they copy it, they hope that no one realizes it, but it's...
I would say if the idea started and the project has started, and then you find out that somebody has made a similar project, I still, either in a group or by myself, continue with my project. And I try to not look too much on the similar thing, because it will affect me. And if we end up with the same result, then it's either happiness or sadness, it depends. But I think if one is too worried about what everyone else is doing all the time, then you just limit yourself into a small box and end up sitting...
If it's too similar, like the AK project in Istanbul.
Yeah.
If it's like the same performance, and it's... You just can't do it.
Yeah.
Let's step a bit forward here and ask a more moralistic question here. And how about stealing? If you find an interesting project going on when you're traveling around somewhere, and you come home and you have to do some exhibition, and would it be possible for you to do this project and assign it as your own and not mention the one you own?
Yeah, of course. It's immoral, but why not? I mean, everyone is doing that. Inspiration or sampling, you just steal.
I call it inspiration. He calls steal inspiration.
Yeah, it's basically the same.
I don't agree with you there.
No.
I have no problem. Moral problem.
And we have two more lessons. We have. I mean, that's interesting.
But I mean, if you do that, then you're sort of more, I guess, more interested in, how can you say, like the image of an exhibition that you sort of place somewhere, and not. I mean, if you steal, there's no process. There's nothing sort of. I mean, you probably don't think too much yourself, and yeah.
But
when you can't sort of expect the sort of audience to.
But if you steal from a lot of sources and you mix it, then it's something new.
Yeah, then it's remixing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's happening. Everyone's stealing. Everyone just looks at it at the same time.
I was talking about the clear steal. When you steal something,
Yeah.
you take it just and use it as your own work.
It should be not so obvious. We have to hide it.
No, I don't agree with you.
No?
That's your opinion.
Okay.
I think that these artists we have here, they are still, I have all this with this one. They are still quite young, and they still believe in the good life. And the human is a good figure. But actually, stealing is one of the most important ways of working today, because most things are already done. And it's almost impossible to find out because, as I said, we have exhibitions going on. Every second there is a new exhibition opening in contemporary art somewhere in the world. And so how can you check up all what's going on? So you must find many similarities to the exhibition we have here, for example. And you can't check them out all. It's just by coincidence if you run into that. And then you can do the reverse thing that if you're out and finding this is an interesting idea, I'll try to do this. And the reason you haven't heard about it is that it was not a big success. But if you take someone else's idea and you have success with it, it becomes yours. And if then the other one that you stole from is waking up and say, hey, who's listening? None. Maybe you believe that this must be a scandal that you used before. But that's not the case. For example, our Damien Hirst, I think many of you know Damien Hirst. Damien Hirst, the artist, he made the skull with jewels and all that, and he's putting animals in boxes with formalin, and he's extremely famous everywhere. He's stealing everything. And when the people come to him and say, oh, well, he stole from me, and stuff, he's a kind guy, so he gives them some money. He doesn't have to. He just gives them some money for that because he earns so much, so he can pay them more. He steals ideas. And that brings me to another question, which I would like to hear about your opinion about, which I think we should all be aware of that, because now we come into the real things here, that which is ruling art, and that which is creating quality and is beyond everything we have seen so far and discussed so far. These things seem important, we have been discussing, but actually they are secondary. And that is, if you want to create quality, doing a good work is not enough. The thing is, of course, how to work to bring this into a situation where interest can be created. Because if you want to make something a good artwork, you have to exhibit it in the right place, it has to be seen by the right people, and there should be kind of follow-up. There should be some consequences of further exhibitions, preferably in better places. And my statement here is that the main interest for an artist must always be to create and work with their networks, their references, and how you are going to get your works out in the world. Because if you go around here and you work here with all these installation things, and then you lose a lot of time, because you could have some assistant doing that while you were sitting on the phones and sending emails and moving around. How is your relation to work on the network thing, which I mean is the thing that is the difference between a good artist and a bad artist?
It's the most important thing, network. You can be a brilliant artist in the studio if you never go out, if you're not social, if you're unfriendly, no one will invite you. That's the human factor, and it's like that. And you have to accept that. So you can. It's just part of the work of your world and your job.
Yeah.
How do you, I mean, more specifically, I mean, how is this a part of your work? You give this people in the...
How is
the presentation with you?
Yeah, I mean, how do you work with these issues?
with the networking and preparing?
How is it going on? I mean, I think it's interesting for people to know. I mean, when an artist has to get their things out, how do they do? I mean, how do you make contacts? How much time do you put on these issues? I mean, what means do you use? I mean, do you print things? Do you send things out on the web, or do you have a home page, or you get in touch with galleries? You are taking a trip to Berlin and talking to people there. You are getting in touch with Curator A and B, or I mean, can you say something about the life? The life of the real life in art.
A lot of it is of course about meeting people on like in Riga, for instance. You have Survivor Kit, and we were there last year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of what I mean, this project is actually because of that we met people there that opened doors. They opened doors for
residency
us.
where we applied, and so but you can plan it. You don't write mails. Now I have to be friendly to this person. Oh, that's a curator. I'm especially friendly to her. It doesn't work like that. It's just natural. And if you plan it, it's too cynical, and you're getting like too friendly, and then it will not work. I don't know. It's just like very natural. Like when you get friends, or it's just you're social, but you know. I think you can't really plan it.
I would say that 90 to 95% of the time is actually trying to network with people and get contacts and provide contacts to others, help each other, because as we said, you can be a brilliant artist, but if you're not given the opportunity to show somewhere, nobody will see it, and then you don't exist. And the way I experienced how it works today is that you meet people in, like here for instance, or in this thing in Riga, or workshops, and you find people that you kind of connect with in a certain way, and then they might be a curator, they might be an artist, they might be someone else who opens doors. And you also must remember in this that you must also open doors for others, otherwise you're just leeching off, and that will eventually be revealed. So it's about giving and taking space, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
So it's a very important, like for instance, we spent the time with this project, most has been writing mails, planning meetings, budgets, paperwork, and then we come here now, we build this up for a week, and in Tallinn we work for a month, but the preparing time for those projects, these projects has been extremely long, and this gets, you know, sitting and writing budgets and traveling plans and formulating projects.
But that's part of the game.
Yeah, that's
you
how
can
it is.
change it.
Yeah.
So
it's very important, networking.
I don't know. I think when it comes to like networking, I mean, it is basically that you sort of you meet someone that has a network, so you try to I guess collecting networks. I guess that's how it is, and you can do that by I guess just socializing and you get a lot and you have also people that you met when you were at the art school, so because they're also trying to get those kind of networks, so so I guess you.
But that's not the most important thing, because I've met artists, they never do anything, they don't produce art, but they say they like to go to parties to meet curators and important people and just want to be friendly to the right people. But you know that now I checked the homepage and it's not going fine, so it's not enough just to network. So you should.
No, of course you have to show something
and grow as an artist. If you perfect network and everyone likes you, but you have nothing to say as an artist, it's also over.
Yeah, you have to learn all the rights you have in the tribe.
Yeah.
And also how to present yourself as interesting, so that this importance is coming through. I mean, So when you're moving around, you can start. But we have learned something here, and those who haven't thought about it is that what is the difference between yesterday's artist and today's artist? And that is very easy to say. In the old days, they didn't make projects, they painted or was drawing or something like that. And you had everything at home. You took your pencils and drawings and you started. Today, I mean, they have this planning and the budget and travels. So there's this paperwork to be done. And then you have to send this in to the institution who has to say yes or no. And if they say no or say half no, so you have to rework it again and all these things. And we have to understand that this is also artistic work. It's also creative. You have to be very creative. And some artist has really learned the art of applying in projects. To be real, masters on that. To write in the right way. They are so beautifully made, so they could be exhibited. Probably it has already been done, but otherwise you could have kind of exhibition of projects that actually was not thought to be made. It would just be shown as applications. So that is, something we have to understand, that it's a hard work. You have to be very clear about that and very disciplined.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there anyone who wants to ask a question to an artist here or make a comment or something? It's of course open for that.
Yes. Questions?
How do you cannot sell the project now, product. What do you live on?
Yeah, that's the big problem. You don't get paid to write applications. So as an artist today, especially if you're new out from the school, like we basically are, 1 or 2 years out, then you have a side job, or you're very lucky, or you have rich parents or inheritance or something. So it is very difficult to live on this, and I think also it's a good thing, because how do you talk, especially if you work in kind of political or social art, how do you talk about society if you're not part of the real society where you're working and you have day-to-day problems? And so I think it's good, and it also maybe is something that cuts off the people who just want to be famous, because if you're not getting paid or rich, why do it unless you're like really interested in it? So, yeah.
But that's the biggest strength, to be poor and hungry, because then your applications, they need to be good, and you just have to work on it. If you're married to someone rich, or your papa pays all the bills, then you don't have this motivation. Like everything is solved anyway. So especially you and me, we practice a lot to write applications and try to correct each other. And so that's an important skill, and that's a good thing, to be poor and have no plan B. So, and that's quite positive, to be desperate.
Eskil, how do you survive?
It's
Get your daily food.
I'm a personal assistant, basically. That's how I get my my food in my tummy. And sometimes you have a project where you get a little bit of money, but you can't sort of buy something nice in time.
Well, I have to make a comment on what you said here, Sebastian, that we actually got back the poor genius artist. They has no money, but they really can make good art because they're so hungry. So, I think you're wrong there, because those artists who actually has a good background, rich parents. There are several of these in the art world, and you can't say they are bad. I mean, you could point out many of them who actually are good artists. So I mean, it doesn't. It isn't something you should strive for to get poor, because you.
No, but we don't want to be poor. This is, I mean,
I don't want to stay poor. I want to be very rich, of course, and famous. But it's one of the motivations. I mean, if you're Damien Hirst, you may want to earn more and more money. Then you also have to write better and better applications. But my motivation is that we just have to be. We can't relax too much, and you just have to struggle. And otherwise, you're out of the game. Then the next people leave the art schools, and the next, and then it's goodbye. Then you don't have a show, then you don't get the grants, and it's just good to remember. And so I think that's the motivation.
Yeah, I think this was a very good question you asked, because there's probably many of you who are thinking about that. How do artists survive? And we talked about grants here, and one has to remember that if you look at the art world, you can see how many grants there are. There is a lot of possibilities. I mean, but it's not enough, of course, because you have thousands and thousands of artists who has no chance to get any grants. But if you actually count them all in Europe, you will be very impressed. I mean, and then you will also understand that you have some artists who is famous, but they're very bad in selling artworks, because they do kind of installation work, or they do some video or documentation things, and they're very social, and there's no market for them actually. There will probably be, but it takes time. And how do these artists survive? I think it can walk from one grant to another, because they're well known and make good artworks, but they don't earn any money for selling, but they get the grants everywhere. And you have also the prize winners. If you follow art today, you see that there's never been in the art world so many prizes you can get shortlisted for, and then they give a prize. There is a young artist prize also, and actually they feed a lot of artists also these prizes, because there are so many today. So that gives some sort of aspects of the everyday life for the poor artist. Do we have any more questions here?
Well, I have a question. I was just wondering, what did you write in your proposal about your projects that it was displayed here in Kalmar? What is it that you've done down there or up there? What's your exhibition about? So we can be ambassadors to talk about it in the community.
Yeah, and you mean what we sort of applied here? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was a lot with the sort of the Estonian and the single revolution as a sort of, I guess, as a title, as a sort of story, but we could then sort of I guess develop to an exhibition, to something that could sort of continue to something else and become more art. I don't know.
Is that enough, or you think you should add something to that?
What do you think?
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe something. How was the reception when you wrote it down, and you got an enthusiastic answer for that, or did they contact you for discussion, or I mean, how did they?
I think Eskil had the contact here to Kalmar.
Yeah.
And then we wrote a proposition to the museum, and then we met with the curator.
She went to
in person, like a real meeting, not Skype. So, and we talked about the project and how we could put it in a local context, and also how to adapt it for Kalmar, because this project from the beginning was not about Kalmar, it was about Estonia. So we came to a good agreement there, I think, and then we started developing from there.
Yeah.
So, anyone more asking a question to these nice guys here?
Yeah.
Well, then I think we should maybe finish off, because we've been sitting here for more than an hour. People are tired and they want to do something more reasonable, and now they haven't learned very much. But I think I should say one last thing, and that is actually the Estonian singing revolution which I've been thinking about. I can also say that my father was an Estonian, so I have a relation to countries there. What would you answer this question? Is it reasonable to say that the Estonian singing revolution was that a real revolution, or is just that a kind of metaphor, a symbol, or because if you look at revolution, you have the power that should be moved away, and that power will always defend itself. And when you start singing, I mean, is that enough to crash them?
Yeah, but they won.
They got rid of the Soviets, so of course they won. So it was a successful revolution, wasn't it?
Yeah, and comparing to the other countries in Balticum, in the Baltic states, it was fairly unbloody. So they chose another way of protesting. In Lithuania and Latvia, there were people killed and all these things. Probably in Estonia too, but to choose this kind of Gandhi approach that they did shows that it's still possible to overthrow a system by not using force. And that is, I think, very interesting about this. And also the thing that the Soviets actually encouraged singing in the 60s in their cultural push for regional identity. And this backfired on them totally, like 20 years later, when people found their Estonian identity in this singing thing. And yeah, so that is something we discussed a lot and found interesting. And at the same time, the Arabic Spring is probably going on. And there people are dying like flies. You know. There is no protest, and the dictators, they're trying to kill everyone they can. But why didn't they do this in Estonia? No idea. It worked.
Yeah, from my point of view, and that's just a comment on this view, because I don't agree with you. I think that when you come to a point when you sing down a revolution, the revolution has already taken place. It's just like when you have a concrete house and you put a lot of dynamite and you blow everything up, and in the end there's just a small string standing, and then you can go up to that and then it turns down and says, now it's over, now it's finished. So I mean, when this revolution came to the Baltic countries, we all understood that the collapse was there. And I think it's also important to discuss this thing that there's probably no thing as a nice revolution. Because if you have a nice revolution, there is no force actually, because the force will be a bloody adventure at some point. But it can go slowly, also continually by losing power gradually. That happens also. But I think that could be interesting part of the discussion here. What actually took place in Estonia and singing out a revolution is maybe more symbolically, but actually it's a start for a good discussion.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we? Say another thank to the artist and leave the word to the curator, who is the boss here. We have to remember that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alte Schweden, Sebastian, Jocke, and Eskil and Lars. Thank you for entertaining us and taking up interesting questions. I think you are very welcome back here, because the exhibition will go on. And you have still time to create some of your own and put something more to it, add something to it. And you're also very welcome to come, because we have workshops with artists, and we will announce that we will have advertised about that. And you have to look at the home site, and then you find every information. And we also will have some choirs here singing, Månkören, and we also have some from folkhögskolorna, Ölands and Högalids folkhögskola, who will work together with Mr. Locke from Estonia about Estonian songs, and they will sing for us 16th of November. And you will come back and you will make workshops for choirs and also for young people And so I hope you will follow us, and please come back. You're very, very welcome. Thank you very much for today. Thank you.
Springer runt.